Yes, indeed. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to ShoutCraft Kings November. My name is TotalBiscuit, and what a show we have for you today. I'll be joined by my illustrious co-commentator, Mr. Jeff iNcontroL Robinson.
Good to be here. They call it the butt crack of dawn, John, but they only call it that because I imagine it's so damn sexy. I can't wait to cast.
That is the reason. That is the only possible reason that could be.
Yeah.
What a show. What a show we have. We have a new patch. We've got some of the best players in the world. We have currently Neeb on the throne. Can he survive more than even a map against players of this caliber? We just don't know. We're going to find out.
Usually not, but it does create that anxiety of who will be the person to survive several maps and earn pretty damn good money, just like we do every single month. It's
a lot of money.
$500 a map, right?
Yeah, you can't really argue with that, honestly. $500 for, in some cases, we've seen 3.5 minutes work. That's not bad.
I'll take it.
Seems like a good idea to me. And so do all of these people. They believe that. We have the entire round of 4 of BlizzCon here today. Like, these guys that just walked away with like $100,000 minimum each. And they thought, yeah, ShoutCraft Kings sounds like good use of my time.
Well, it's the best online show there is, and you're saying this, but like this new patch is to be hyped up, but by the way as well. Like, these are really good players, but these are really good players trying to figure something out right now. Like, the patch just hit, and there's been some huge shakeup, in particular for the Protoss players, but for everybody, to be honest with you, and even balance talk after that as well. So it's in a shakeup period right now. There's a lot of new viewers, new people, and then these top guys playing with just new stuff. The Mothership core gone, so let's figure it out.
Yeah, it's crazy, you know. We've seen an entire unit removed from the game, several changes to the roles of different units, abilities, and of course we're in a mid-balance sort of period. There's already been suggestions about ways to change existing units, so this is a version of the game we might not actually get to see for very long.
Yeah, and for a lot of people, they might look at that and kind of think, well, you know, what does that mean? But for me, what that really gets me excited about is these are top-notch players playing best of ones, which already kind of messes around with the way they think about competitive StarCraft. And then you throw in the fact that now we're playing with new tools, new mechanics, new balance, and that's where the creativity gets to start to shine. That's where their own ideas start to come out. We don't have established PvT meta right now. I mean, people think they know with kind of what Zest did at Home Story Cup, but there's going to be their own concepts and ideas shining forward, and for a lot of money against some top players. It's very exciting.
Well, without further ado, let's unveil our first challenger for the reigning King Neeb. He will be facing off against a top-tier foreign Terran. That's always a nice way to start things off.
There's 3 of them, so
yes,
short list.
Exactly. You know, that very much reduces the number of potential applicants to that. Foreign Terrans are a rare beast. We know at least one of them is going to be in the show today. Of course, special. Round of 4, BlizzCon. Looking forward to seeing what he can do. But Neeb will have to face up against somebody else entirely. Europe's own uThermal.
Very cool. uThermal, obviously, like you said, one of the absolute top-tier non-Korean Terrans. But also, he, too, sat on his own form of a throne for a little while there. A lot of people called him the best Terran outside of Korea, but then even for a little while, maybe one of the absolute best non-Koreans in general. And since then, kind of fallen off, and now he's facing the guy that is widely considered the best.
I'd say so. He's had some issues at tournaments at late, but I've said this time and again. When you become the foreign hope of any description, you get this giant target on your back, and everybody in Korea starts tearing your builds apart and figuring out the best ways to hurt you. And that's exactly what happened to Neeb, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah.
So that doesn't mean he's not good, just because he hasn't been able to produce results lately. And hopefully we'll get to see a little bit of a run here.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, though, like, not produce results is he didn't make it out of his groups entirely in the round of 16. He only,
how terrible.
He only beat Rogue and then lost to Rogue. It's like, it's very understandable, is I guess the point I'm trying to make.
Indeed, yeah. All right, ladies and gentlemen, here we go. Neon Violet Square will be our map today. Don't expect us to know much about it, because this is a new map pool, a new game, and we'll kind of be learning with you. To the southeast position, the challenger in the blue trunks, playing Terran, Liquid uThermal. Versus his opponent to the northwest position, the reigning king of the hill, in the red trunks, playing Protoss, it's Ting's Neeb.
So right off the bat, a couple things I want to kind of draw attention to that are very interesting. If you go down and look at the natural, Behind the natural is a third base, but man, what a stinker of a third base. It only has, I think that's 4 mineral piles and 2 gas. So it's a very short and stubby little base. The base also is ringed by a space that can't be jumped by a Reaper. So not the best Reaper map. And then look where the probe just went. It actually ran through a grid. If you just go base to base, you actually have to go through that.
That is
of course
interesting.
It's interesting, right?
That is an unusual little map feature. This is the kind of thing that happens when there's no major tournament seasons going on.
Yeah.
People go a little bit crazy with the map pool, which I really do like that. I genuinely believe more interesting maps in StarCraft is the way to go. So we'll be getting at least a little taste of that today.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, if you guys are just now joining us and you haven't seen John's tournament in the past, is that still on your YouTube, or is that, am I advertising?
Oh, it's there. Yeah, it's there. If you're talking about
watch that.
ShoutCraft Clan Wars in particular, especially Season 2, we went a little crazy with the maps, and there were some interesting results, let's just put it that way.
It made it fun. There was some maps that had like a giant cannon on it that you had to man.
Yep.
People were fighting for it. It was obviously a very different kind of take on StarCraft, but for people that have been playing this or watching it for years and years, it's super fun. Anyways, enough about that, but check that out, guys. Go to his YouTube, look at that. So we'll see a little bit of that in this map, though. You can see the probe kind of going through that grid. Again, you can go around it, but if you just go straight up and down, you're going to be in there. So where that could be applicable is like some weird situations where there's like Marines on the other side, and if your Zealots and armies just streaming through there, good luck. But otherwise, opening, we're just getting a single gas, kind of normal opening here from uThermal. He takes the expand. So far, in terms of meta, he's not really shaking it up, which is okay. And then on the flip side, Neeb hasn't shown his hand just yet either. Going for the Nexus first, I guess, so that's a little bit different.
Well, we're definitely going to see some differences immediately because that mothership core, it's gone. That's one of the big changes in the patch. You can no longer build that thing. You can build a shield battery, which is an interesting defensive structure. We might see that come into play here.
Yeah, I think of it as like a pseudo mothership core. Obviously, it doesn't offer offensive abilities, which is kind of a big deal. So people were like pylon rushing and stuff like that, or absolutely shutting down a drop with a mothership core, photon overcharging a pylon. But with the shield battery, it's kind of interesting because it's a little bit more utility, but also very different. It kind of rewards better thinking. Like healing your probes is not much, but it gives you some time for something to get over there. Fewer units hold off more, so it's kind of cool. I actually really like it. I think it's a very elegant, and you can see the first one going down at that natural. So this can function as, you know, you can micro backwards from the ramp and go heal there, or if the natural gets dropped, you can heal from there as well. And it starts with full energy, I believe. I'm a little bit new to this patch myself, but it's just really strong.
Yeah, we'll see how powerful that can be in a defensive scenario, especially against a fairly basic drop. Issue with the shield battery being that, well, you need to spread them around your base. There's one in the back there, there's one in the natural, so you can't make much use of it if you're out of casting range. What we have is a very standard Widow -6 Marine kind of drop. Will it be able to do some damage here? Well, with the 2 Stalkers plus the battery, probably not a huge amount, but there is also a lack of detection, so that mine could be a bit of a thorn in the side of Neeb.
I believe the mine's still... No, actually, they didn't do the change where it reveals itself after it shoots. But what I like about this, potentially, we'll have to see what the Hellions do here, because they're going to attack a mineral line that then is going to get healed immediately. But here comes that drop on the backside. The mine goes down immediately. Marines start to shoot. Good pullback by Neeb on great reaction. And uThermal picks up the Widow mine, actually, as well.
Pulls it back. Trying to find a good position for it. You can see the battery was active there, which meant that really... Oh, but that was a hit and a half. Neeb ran right into that one. Battery won't help you there. 6 workers killed, and on the way out, of course, those Marines getting a few more. I was about to doubt the efficacy of this drop with unstimmed Marines versus a shield battery, but what you should also notice is how fast that shield battery drained.
Yeah, you're exactly right. Everything that was getting hit in a pretty large radius was actually getting healed, so it just drained of its energy really quickly. That was a really cool move. Neeb actually grabbed the Stalker, threw it forward in an attempt to get him to shoot his own units, but uThermal actually targeted a probe clump and got a few for himself, so... Very nice, but to your point, John, the drop looked pretty bad. It looked like it wasn't going to do much, excuse me, and then it did an okay job, but you'll notice, because of the economic opening from Neeb, he's still ahead in workers. He's still a little bit up in supply, and that is mostly those workers. So the drop was good, and it needed to be, but it didn't do game-ending damage or anything because of what Neeb's opening was.
Yeah, it certainly didn't. We've got that third going in the back, which... almost seems like a terrible third, as you mentioned, but it does have 2 full gas, which is perhaps more important than the minerals at this point. especially if you're going for a tech-heavy build. We did see the Colossus Den being placed by the Protoss player. So he would like some high-tech units. He certainly would. uThermal, on the other hand, sticking mostly to Marines, but also adding Marauders into the mix quite early here.
Yep, and he's just going to go for, combat shield and stim over here. His, as you said, though, 2 tech labs on 2 of the 3 barracks, so absolutely featuring that. We see some Widow Mine. Oh, it actually did get a couple kills back at the 3rd. The short and stubby base, so a little bit more light harass coming out.
He's doing the job, and he gets out with it as well. You got to be impressed by that. That Widow Mine has really made itself worthwhile, and maybe it doesn't get out.
Did he see that Widow Mine? Is it still that, actually, that after it shoots, it can be seen?
It's a good
sorry,
question.
I don't have that answer. Yeah, he was shooting it.
Yeah, well, I'll have to keep an eye on that. We're currently in the process of being very confused between the patch notes that came out yesterday, which are currently not implemented, plus the patch notes that we are currently running on. So we'll have to be a little careful about that. Try to figure out which is which.
I'm your half expert right now. I was interested to see that. But to your point, John, you can see that base is fully saturated already. Just 4 mineral piles and the 2 gas, like you said, especially if you're going Colossus. Yeah, you're going to need that gas.
It's important, no doubt. We've got the combat shield on the way here. And they're just doing their little maze team building activity in the middle there. So they dodge through. I would imagine that having a medevac is kind of cheating in that respect, but hey.
Yeah.
I can see right above it. Combat shield's now kicked in. Yeah, of course. Stim isn't quite done yet, but he's obviously trying to push with the idea that Stim will be finished by the time he arrives in mind. With that Colossus in play and a second one kind of far out, I mean, there are 2 Colossi, 8 Stalkers. That's not a tough army, but it's a difficult army to engage up a ramp like that.
Yeah. No, this is really interesting, actually. uThermal's army that's pushing out right here looks really unimpressive. And what it's trying to do is win space for this drop that's hitting that 3rd base again. It only gets 1 probe because Neeb's on top of it right now. He's playing really well. But if you look at Neeb's army, good golly, it's actually down in supply, but it just looks bigger and stronger. Now, a lot of uThermal's army's back at home. That's very standard Terran play. So just kind of pushing out, trying to win space. But Neeb's been on top of the harass. And one of the things to kind of keep your eye on as we go is the use of shield batters. So a second one was added inside the main. Kind of, again, no cannons. It's really interesting to watch, actually. But it's just pushed out a little bit further out there just to heal against those drops. So I'm interested to watch that as we progress, I guess.
So as an FYI, we did get confirmation from our stats man that, as it turns out, yes, while the cooldown is in effect, Widow Mines are revealed.
Okay.
So you do have to get them out of there. Detection is not necessary. That's a nasty hit on the head with the hammer, is what that is to the Widow Mine. It certainly doesn't make it useless, however, as we've seen already throughout this game. uThermal has done a good amount of damage with Widow Mines. A little quick engagement and a poke. It's not a lot of sentry energy available there.
Yeah, it's interesting how you can kind of defend against Widow Mines right now, too, because you can kind of bait out the one shot with a probe, and then it just dies. And
you have to
that's
leave.
absolutely not worth it, of course. So it's kind of a different way to think for Terran players. But we're going to have that push here at the 3rd base. Going after the Nexus, the Colossus are good enough to bring this down, but they're kind of behind the mineral line, so the Nexus will die.
Yep.
And there's no medevacs here, so he's not able to... Well, okay, it looks like he will be able to retreat, actually. Excuse me.
Yeah, with what he's got left. And the nice thing is that's a very Marauder-heavy force, very durable. He'll be able to get out with that in mind. He also caused a fairly heavy supply block with the destruction of those pylons and that Nexus. So that's a nasty strike, honestly.
Yeah. Yeah, it did what he wanted to do. If it was like his whole army clumped up in that one spot, then it'd be a little bit more questionable, but that was just a segment of it. He did some light harass as well, but I gotta say, and not that this surprises me at all, but a little bit of a tip of the hat to Neeb, because he's just been on top of defending against a lot of that harass. Now adding cannons for a little bit more visibility and defense of their own. But he is up to 4 bases. Now on the flip side, uThermal is also up to 4 bases, and he's foregoing the stubby base, by the way. He's like, that's a last resort. So this is a little bit better econ for our player uThermal over here, who got some good damage in.
Yes, he did. Yes, he did. And his army's looking pretty healthy right now, and he was lagging a little bit on the upgrades. He is now finally starting to catch up. His armory was quite late. Not surprising, considering the commitment to Marauders and Vikings, as all his gas was going there. Storm being added in, and Charge being added in as well, and some very solid upgrades coming from the Protoss player, who is electing just to play passively right now.
And he's happy to do it, but you brought up a really good point, TotalBiscuit. If you look at the nexuses of the Protoss player, all of the chrono boost is fairly low. This is a new thing. You don't just leave it on something and it kind of passively slightly speeds it up. Chrono boost right now freaking crushes it. Look at the Forge. This is with a chrono boost on it. You can watch it bleed through the upgrade, and Neeb has been so on top of this. It really is deceiving how fast it can kind of increase your upgrades.
Yeah, and that could definitely catch uThermal off guard, who does have a much, much larger army, but if it lags behind too far in upgrades, that could become a serious problem. We're seeing Zealot Archon transition being added in here. Storm is also available. 6 Templar and a decent amount of energy. The question is uThermal's army big enough to crack this defensive position? And indeed, the defensive position isn't ready yet, so this might be a case that Neeb abandons. Does he choose to fight in this position? Well, he's going to go for it. Here come double storms, and from the side, uThermal comes in with a big flank, trying to get under the Colossi. Another big storm comes in. The Colossi stand tall in this situation, and that pushes the Terran back. A GG. A straight up tap out. And frankly, after watching that fight, I don't blame him in the slightest. Look at what was left of the army supply. 93 for the Protoss. They barely lost anything. uThermal's at 130 and plummeted to under 40.
Yeah, you could kind of, I agreed with you, TotalBiscuit. You were the like emotional soundboard for what was going on in that game, because it was like, I guess he's going to fully commit to this, and fully commit he did. Like you said, he went in with a 40 supply advantage and came out of it down like 30 supply, because he at no point in time was like, this is not going well, I'm going to turn back. He just fully committed to it. And you said 6 Templar, that was a big deal. The shield batteries never really finished, but it was just that Neeb was behind a lot of the infrastructure. So the Vikings bled forward because it was an attack move. They started to kind of just do a smattering of damage amongst the Colossus, but took massive storms, bled out and died. And there was still 2 or 3 Colossus alive, now unhindered, with a Bioforce that was also getting stormed. So it was a disastrous fight for uThermal.
It was quite surprising to see that many Colossi stand as long as they did. I mean, that was a significant number of Vikings. Yeah. Traditionally thinking, at any rate, Colossi shouldn't live long in that scenario, but they did. And as a direct result, well, you can't leave Colossi untouched for that long. Like, they are deadly. They will cut apart a Terran army of that size.
Yeah, it's interesting because, you know, I don't want to, things happen, so I don't want to berate uThermal's play too hard for this. He played a great game otherwise, but it's that classic mistake of, if you just fan out your Vikings and attack move in the direction of the Colossus, like, all the Colossus took half damage or 3/4 damage, but I think only 1 or maybe 2 even died. You really have to focus them down, because the damage of this Colossus falls off really quickly. Like 3 or 4, you know, they destroy bio, but when it gets down to 1 or 2, it's actually not that impressive. I don't think that uThermal was ever going to win that fight. I think he needed to scan, look at it, and be like, oh, that's 6 Templar. I can't fight here. I need to pull back. Be happy with your Viking count and start teching towards Ghost and go from there. He had 4, I think, going on 5 bases with a planetary at his closest base. So it's not like he couldn't hold off an attack. It would have been hard, but I think he just overcommitted. He put it all on the line with that attack, and unfortunately, with no reaction to the storms, he died.
Yeah, it seems to me, with that size of army, that is where you continue to try and pick your opponent apart. Yeah. The big Protoss army is trying to defend 5 different places at once. You've got a 40 supply army lead. You have a big enough army to defend, especially with defender's advantage at home. If the Protoss decides to push out, you'll know they're coming. It's not hard to figure that one out. So start hitting bases, doing more economic damage, shutting down key tech structures. But instead, a full-on attack into a highly teched-up Protoss, and it was absolutely stomped. I mean, that is the Protoss dream, really. Look at my high tech. I lose no units. You lose all of units. It worked very, very well.
He had all of them. I mean, to be fair for uThermal, that situation is really bad, by the way. So it's not like, this is not Idra MLG moment where we're just like, what's going on? It's like, okay, I get it. He didn't anticipate Storm coming up that quickly behind Colossus, went for a big attack. The Protoss was going to be on 5 bases. He was going to have Colossus and Storm, and uThermal was just then starting Ghost. So it's like, all right, the game is pretty over. It's just unfortunate because uThermal did such a great job getting to that point. To put it all on the line with that one attack that he then was out-teched in is unfortunate. But that's what happens, especially in best of ones, and otherwise it was a cool game.
That it was. There are plenty more opponents coming in the direction of Neeb, but Neeb with a nice little warm-up, looking solid. It's looking the way that he should, really.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I mean this is actually what's kind of exciting about this right now, and maybe they're even talking a little bit. I mean, not they as in Blizzard, but some of the kind of pro gamers. Chrono Boost might be a little bit too strong as it is right now. It was really cool to see that he took some serious damage, but if you're really on top of your Chrono Boost and on a map like that kind of gives you the little base, so you have like an extra nexus kind of early on, you can fly through upgrades, you can fly through production if you really utilize that Chrono Boost. And I know that sounds weird to say in StarCraft 2's 7th year now, but like it's actually a big deal in its current iteration. It's huge.
Yeah, it is an absolutely huge deal, and we'll see a lot more of the effects of these balance changes as we continue to play through this particular tournament. I'd like to remind you that today's tournament is brought to you by Blizzard Entertainment Dodger Coffee Company. Head on over to the link that you can see on the screen right there down at the bottom if you need a injection, a possibly unhealthy amounts of caffeine.
Put a little Dodger in your life. Just a little bit, you know?
Always good, just a smidge.
She actually doesn't offer a whole lot of herself to put into your life, to be honest with you. You can only take a little dose.
All right, I'll actually be heading to the NA server. Neeb is currently not in Korea, as I believed. He's actually in North America, so we'll be playing from there.
Very good.
Got a little bit of a coin toss. The way that this works, by the way, for those who don't know, if we play cross-server, then a European versus Korean game will always be played on America, and so that's the fairest place for both. You get about equal ping. If it's Europe versus America, or it's America versus Korea, then it will be done via a coin flip. So that, again, is the fairest we can get, basically. Yep. Yeah, you'll never get perfection online, but these pro gamers, they're used to that. That is what they play for. Those are the conditions. Yep. And, I mean, I've got to be honest, I can't even recall the last time that actually made a real difference. It's like, I go to a game, look at a replay, it's like, yes, he definitely lost as a result of increased latency in this situation. I know he lost because his entire build was countered by this, which had nothing to do with that at all. But there you go.
We're in a nice place. I mean, obviously, the best is everyone sitting in a room playing together. But since then, there's more servers. The connectivity has been a lot better. And then, like you said, operators, tournament organizers have figured out the better ways, the closer places to play. So the ping becomes less of an issue. I can't recall the last time pro gamers. I mean, certainly pro gamers are going to whine, but in our tournaments at least, it's been really nice. They're playing for great money. They're playing against top competition that then has to do that as well. By the way, it's not like we favor the guy that's sitting on the throne. It's actually just between the two. So it's really nice. I think it's about as fair as it can possibly get, and you'll get those games as best as you can online, because this is something everyone deals with. So pro gamers don't really whine about it. They just kind of deal with it, because if they want to play in these kind of tournaments, this is just the reality. There's no way to fix it.
Indeed. Well, we have a challenger for Neeb here. It's going to be a good one. We're going to have a Protoss versus Zerg. I haven't seen this guy play in a few months, actually. He was, at one point, a tyrant of online tournaments. You didn't want to face him. He was in every online event. He was winning most of them. He was kind of the Zerg's ByuN, as it was. But in this case, we know him as Solar.
Very exciting. Solar was actually just at Home Story Cup with Neeb, where I think to bolster your argument from earlier, Neeb actually disappointingly lost in group stage.
He did
2 or 1 at Home Story Cup. But again, that's different, because he just came off of BlizzCon. New patch hits like literally 2 days later, travels to Europe and plays in a tournament that's mostly for fun. It's not really Neeb's bag. Solar, however, is Mr. Home Story Cup. He translates for all the Koreans. He's one of the absolute best players. I believe he was in the finals, if I'm not mistaken, losing to Zest. But, Zest is best.
Zest is best.
That's just the way it goes. But the kind of interesting point for us here is he's played quite a few games. I mean, all these guys have played quite a few games, but he played competition and did well, mostly on this patch. So we'll have to see what Zerg looks like at the highest level, 6 days into the new patch.
Indeed.
Or 4 days, actually.
Solar learned enough for that to matter. Has he learned enough to take full advantage of the changes? Well, we are certainly going to find that out as we head on into this game. And here we go. Ladies and gentlemen, on Catalyst LE, your reigning king of the hill, currently up 2 maps, $1,000, nothing to be sniffed at. to the north-southeast position, in fact, in the yellow trunks playing Protoss. It is Ting's Neeb versus his opponent to the northwest position. In the red trunks playing Zerg from Team Splice. It's Solar.
So in map 1, Neeb takes down uThermal. It was a good game, back and forth, nice harass, but very solid play from Neeb. And now we get the Zerg flavor, and this is, so to be fair as well, a lot of Terrans are having a little bit of a tough time adjusting to the new patch. They believe that there's some of their old tools have been taken away. It's a little bit hard for them. Zerg and Protoss have been doing very well in this, again, 4-day new meta, basically.
Yep.
And Solar has done better than most. So I'm very curious to see what Zerg looks like with their new tools and their new way of playing.
Indeed. You can add to the conversation, by the way, by using the hashtag ShoutCraft on Twitter. That is hashtag ShoutCraft. We'll put some of the best tweets up on the screen during the tournament. So use it, converse with your fellow viewers and fans, be positive, be funny.
Yes.
Actually, we probably shouldn't encourage them to try and
Don't
be
be funny.
But no.
Unless you are funny.
Yes.
If your mom says you're funny, then do it.
Make sure to consult with at least 3 other people who are not your immediate family as to whether or not you're funny.
I want to show real quick too, by the way. Guys, buy Dodgers coffee because that company and she sponsored this tournament. And if you guys do a good job buying some of that, then TotalBiscuit and Jenna and everybody can continue to siphon money from them.
Yes.
And sponsor more of this and get more stuff going. So buy their coffee. Make it good.
Indeed. Bear in mind, Solar, as you said, already doing very well in this patch. Very well indeed. Came in second in a recent 4.0 tournament. That is nothing to be sniffed at. But we don't really have a big enough sample size. We don't know who the kings of this new patch are, and indeed how long that will actually last, with pending changes already on the horizon. Stargate coming down here for Neeb. One of the more controversial parts of the patch is the speed at which you can get an Oracle out.
Yes, in particular in the PvT matchup, but of course that affects PvZ as well. You can get it out when a Terran has essentially like 4 Marines or something like that.
Yeah.
So they're just kind of basically on their back foot already. Makes it very tough here. Against Zerg, they always have access to queens, and they don't want to necessarily make spore colonies, but they can and will. But you can just you can see the Chrono Boost saving up a little bit on that main. It just makes a huge difference. But a couple of things are going to get in here. They are going to spot that Stargate, and it's nothing else. You don't Chrono Boost out Phoenix here. You don't Chrono Boost out a Void Ray.
Here is the Oracle.
Going to be the Oracle.
And that is the speed at which the Oracle comes out under the new Chrono Boost. Quite quick is the answer to that.
Yeah.
Well, that's something that Solar's going to have to prepare for. There is a bit of a problem because he has taken 3 bases, but simultaneously, an Oracle's not going to do anything to an empty base, really. So, in reality, he's got 2 positions to defend, and he's going to have 2 queens in order to do that. So the damage should be minimal, but can never quite know with an Oracle. There's always a way in. There's always a place that you can apply the pressure.
Oh, okay. The Lings are getting pursued, and I didn't see
quite a few Lings, indeed, coming in, looking for a way in, but there's a double adept block there with the adept backing it up, so that's not going to happen anytime soon. Here come the Oracle, and an immediate interception by Solar, actually taking his queens out into a pretty awkward position. I mean, there's nothing to protect here, really, other than lava. And if you take your queens out too far, then if the Oracle happens to loop around, could be a bit of an issue. There are spore crawlers up in the mineral line, but they're not complete defense against an Oracle.
No, but they are going to, it's enough. Like, if it's just the one, they can kind of ignore it, to your point. But that's, I think, what the queens are out there. If they can go ahead and pick off some of that shields, Oracle's not the tankiest.
Lings actually got in somehow, by the way. Overwhelming number, I believe the 2 adepts actually moved out of position, which involved the Lings getting in and getting on top of the probes, dealing a decent amount of damage and causing some nasty disruption. That also happened to delay Neeb's attack a good few seconds. You can see clearly ignored his oracles for a good few seconds while he was defending against that. So an uncharacteristic mistake there by Neeb, now attempting to focus down the queen, which he could do if he committed to it, but he's also above a spore crawler, which is never good. Down goes the queen, and he does have a little bit more energy, but he's taking quite a lot of damage.
He gets the queen, he gets several drones, and he does so without taking too much damage, but it's just... I look at these pro gamers, I watch their oracles, and I'm like, that's not what my oracles look like.
No,
when I
they
try
don't
to
do
do
that.
it's like, and it just dies to a single queen, and I'm like, well, it's... All right.
Significant damage done by the triple queen interception. Now, quad queens sitting in a good position there. There is no creep actually holding these two bases together, which is going to be a little bit of a disadvantage chasing those things down. Were there creep, that would have been one dead Oracle, so bear that in mind. Another Link Flood heading towards the wall of Neeb, only a single Adept currently blocking it.
Yeah, he's got a bunch of Adepts at his third. Keep in mind, there is no Mothership Core, so
nope.
Defending as a Protoss is a little bit different. He's going to start adding some shield batteries, and that's nice. But without the Mothership Core kind of floating around, just absolutely shutting down a lot of harass, you have to actually go back to your army to do that. Now, to your point, there's actually only just 2 active creep tumors and not connecting them into the natural. So what he's been doing is a lot of injects, and we're starting to see the realization of that. It's just hatch tech, but there's roaches already coming out. Now, Neeb with these oracles spots this and sees it coming, and is going to react immediately by starting to chrono boost out his immortal and adding more gateways.
Seems like a good way to do it. Drop down that Oracle Revelation. Keep an eye on that army, because Solar decided, you know what, now is a good time to apply pressure. I know what you've got, and it's Adepts. It's a good amount of Adepts, but it's still just Adepts, and I think I can do something about that. Lings do try and get in there, but the shield battery holds those sentries strong.
Holy cow. This is actually everything. He's bringing the queens.
Oh, yeah.
It's about as revealed as is humanly possible, and Neeb's just at the top of this. You have to go up this ramp, or go all the way to the other direction there.
Oh, man.
So he's actually just kind of opening the space. He's not necessarily going to go up this ramp, but he could. He wants Neeb to be caught out of position.
Oh, well, I'm a bit worried about these 2 stasis wards. If Solar happens to run into that and lose even part of his army to it, then the rest of it would lose badly.
John, look at the defenses behind this.
Yeah, it's a lot. That's just shield batteries. Yeah, just a big pile of shield batteries. It's apparently the way to go here. Lings do manage to get onto the third base, but not a great deal of damage done. And here we go. The Zerg engagement is happening, but it's not really getting much done as of yet.
No, yeah, he's going back home. I mean, if you go back, you can see he's adding a Baneling nest. He started his lair. That's the universal sign of this is not going to work, is usually when the additional gases get taken and you start kind of droning. Now, it's 3-base Protoss versus 3-base Zerg, which is still not ideal for Zerg. So make no mistake about it. Solar leaned into this, wanted to get something done, and saw that Neeb was really prepared and backed off. And it's kind of questionable, because it's like he opens up Oracle. You scout that at its earliest time with those Lings getting in, and you still commit to an attack that Neeb is staring down at from its very inception. So a little bit of a weird choice from Solar, I think.
What was making me scratch my head a little bit was that Solar had a good amount of Lings in that third base, and there was minimal defense. It seems like he could have got a good amount of economic damage done there, even with the shield batteries in place, but he decided to pull those Lings back. It looks like he didn't really want to overcommit. Now he's going to have to deal with a little bit of harass on his fourth. That's going to be handled fairly easily, but he got a little gun shy there. I think he could have easily sacrificed some Lings to really slow the economy of Neeb down.
Yeah. He needed to do something. So to your point, like if it's at that third, maybe commit there with the Lings, like you were saying, and make that the risk that you take.
Yeah.
He didn't lose the Roaches. He didn't lose the Ravagers. He did lose a couple of Queens, but whatever, they're replaceable. So I agree with you. So he did a tough spot. The fourth base of Neeb is being taken. Now, a little cheekiness is happening here, and I'll tell you what, this is cheekiness. There's no way that it's anything else. Spire went down.
Comes the Baneling run-by. The slowest Baneling run-by perhaps in history that, oh my god, Neeb didn't see it. 13 workers killed at the third. Good god. Neeb kicking himself from not looking at his mini-map there. That was significant economic damage. Neeb is moving out as a direct response to this, and he better, because he just got hammered.
He did, but it's actually kind of funny. He's down in workers. But he just like immediately the second they were dead, he was transferring over for full saturation. So yeah, I'm not trying to diminish this. He did take 13 probe loss. It's huge, but he's just such an automatic and very quick player that it's like, and that base is fine. It's so funny to watch. He's just so smooth. But he pushes out, tries to win some space, as you pointed out. Doesn't really accomplish much. It's going to back up, and here comes Solar.
It's a big Zerg army, and that Protoss army didn't want to get caught out in no man's land. You could hardly blame them. This defensive position not quite as crazy as the other one, and that is Bile raining down. That's a lot of Ravager support in the back there, but the Banelings can't find their way through as wave after wave of force fields prevents that from happening. Great use of the Oracle to focus down a lot of those Banelings. Those warped-in Stalkers warped in as sacrifices more so than anything else, and the Zerg army pushed back, but significant losses taken by the Protoss.
I'm seeing the future TotalBiscuit, and the future is fields of shield batteries. He backed up to that defensive spot, And there was no chance that the forces were going to do any damage up there at all. I watched an Immortal literally become immortal, actually, for the first time ever. But here's that Spire being used. I was expecting Embiid to switch because Solar is, still, again, for all intents and purposes, kind of in a weird spot as a Zerg. And by weird, I mean bad. He's in a bad spot. But he's going to go Corruptor to deal with the Colossus. And I feel like he's falling a little bit into the trap that uThermal did. Corruptors to shut down the Colossus, sure. But it's not like there's 19 Colossus out here. There's just 2. So if you overmake the Corruptors, and then there's Charge Lot, Stalker, Immortal, Sentry on the ground, you're in trouble.
Well, we already see Templar Archives coming up. It is double Colossi production. The question is, does Neeb continue to do that after getting 4? Is 4 the magic number? In which case, some Corruptors will help. The problem with Corruptors is that after you're done slowly, and let's be honest, actually, slowly killing the Colossi with them, they just sort of sit there observing the battle, saying, look, we have a lot of hit points. It's like, yeah, but you can't do anything. Yeah, but look at how many hit points we have, though, as everything else on the ground is dying. So I'm not 100% convinced by that. And also, this defensive position is flat out disgusting. I wonder if Solo is thinking late game. I mean, Broodlord seems like the perfect way to bust these giant defensive bastions that are being produced by the Protoss.
Yeah, that's definitely going to be your hive tech of choice. Here comes that Baneling run by again. Oh, the Warpin didn't quite block, but Neeb's on top of this one. Oh, wait. He is blocking with probes.
Yeah, I mean, blocking with probes, probably not the best idea. And a huge surround by the Zerg army. But a lot of Lings and Banelings were caught in the stasis trap, so it's not an ideal engagement. And we have, a Turtle Toss. I mean, Neeb has been known for being a fairly defensive player. The shield battery has enabled him to do that fully. A lot of Banelings get killed on the way out. That's going to sting. But the thing is, he's not really doing anything to Solar. That's a bit of a concern. Solar continues to attack, which is a bit of a weird thing to me, because it seems like this would be a great time to go Hive and get those Broodlords out and start to besiege the Protoss, who seems unwilling to even venture across the other side of the map. And as I say that, it decides now is the time to do that, which it may very well be. Look at the size of the Protoss army. It is Xbox huge, and the northeast position is certainly going to be compromised. A fight will be forced, and it's not a great position for the Zerg to fight in, honestly. It's a fairly nasty choke. I don't like it. And he's coming in from both sides, but of course the sentries are placed. The force fields are down. The Banelings do manage to get a good connection in the center, though, and more Banelings connecting as well. Will it be enough to bring down that high-tech Protoss army? Well, looks like the investment in Corruptors was a smart one, but everything on the ground for the Zerg dies for its trouble, and the Corruptors get to spectate from their high perch and then leave. A devastating fight on both sides, but frankly, the Protoss came off better here, and that means this base is open to abuse.
Yeah, and he actually transfers drones over to make it even worse. He's like, go ahead, take these.
Damn.
Well, Stalkers are really powerful. That's something that we didn't really talk about in the new patch. And there's the GG as Neeb scores the win there. But that fight in previous patches and previous iterations is huge for the Zerg. He gets a full surround. The Banelings do get on top of that army, and most of that should have melted. But A, Neeb's micro is obviously impeccable, and B, his upgrades. He had a 2 upgrade advantage. The Zerg only had a 2 melee upgrade attack going for himself, whereas Neeb was already at 3 attack, and then I believe it was 1 armor. So
yeah, he
was hitting harder, and he actually had some defense there. And that's going to be the new world that Zergs and Terrans and other Protoss are going to have to figure out, where it's like, hey, if you actually are way on top of your Chrono Boost, and you're like, I'm going to feature double Forge or single Forge, or I'm going to go Robo Production, you're going to get that stuff out lightning quick. And Zerg players, I don't know, as we push forward, if you're going to be able to hack it against a Protoss off single Evo Chamber upgrades.
No,
I think you'll be down 3 upgrades by mid-game every time.
The nice thing is, with shield batteries, it seems you can play very defensively, and then you can commit your Chrono Boost, as you said, entirely to those upgrades. So by the time the fight actually happens, you're fighting against something which is far in advance of what you have. And upgrades are the easiest thing to misjudge, I feel, even as a pro gamer. Now, as a new gamer, you're looking at +1, +2, +3, and you're thinking, that doesn't sound like a lot. In reality, of course, it makes huge difference, but to know exactly how a lower upgrade army would compare to a higher upgrade army, and be able to make a snap decision as to whether or not it's a good idea to fight, even pro gamers don't necessarily have that skill, and this new patch has thrown that for a complete loop.
It's actually really interesting to watch, and I agree with everything you just said, and it's gonna have to be something that they adjust to. I mean, To be fair, and again, we kind of touched on this, but I want to reiterate. If people are looking at that game and going like, why did Solar do X, Y, and Z? He was behind from the very beginning. He did a 3-base timing attack that for the most part scored about 0 damage. The only thing he really was able to accomplish was those 13 probes from what TotalBiscuit called the slowest Baneling run by ever.
It really was. It took a good 20 seconds on the mini-map of Neeb to actually connect, and Neeb didn't notice it. So even pro gamers don't see that kind of thing from time to time.
It happens. But other than that, it was a very bad opening for him. So that's why it felt a little bit more desperate if you were kind of watching that and seeing
Indeed.
like why Corruptors. He was hoping to really shut that down and just win the fight big enough to go on from there and get a win or something like that. But none of it was able to connect. And Neeb's showing really strong. I mean, you might have touched on TotalBiscuit. You said very strong defensive play. Maybe that's the name of the game right now for Neeb, which is what he wants to do anyways.
Yeah, I mean, with the power of the shield battery, I don't see a reason not to play defensively right now. Like, you can put your Stargate behind shield batteries and then go be annoying with it. You can build up an upgraded army behind shield batteries. Like, if the Zerg army had ever fought into that 6 shield battery position, I think the Zerg army would have been annihilated. And it's not like shield batteries are actually that expensive an investment. They're pretty cheap.
Yep. And they're even reactionary a little bit. They don't build super lightning quick, but they also don't take forever to make. So we saw that Neeb saw this attack is for real. It's coming. On the high ground, he built 6 shield batteries. And in the time that it took Solar to knock down the rocks to open up that ramp, the battery's finished. He looks at that and says, well, I cannot actually go in there. So that's it for me, I guess. And that's pretty amazing. It's different. If that's 6 cannons, is he that worried about it? Maybe. But the shield batteries are like the absolute no. You are not going to win this fight at all. Because the range on them is huge. So you pull, you micro at the ramp. He throws up some corrosive bile. You back off of that. Anything that hit you at all before that gets immediately healed. And that's a devastatingly powerful thing.
Yeah. What I have noticed, which may be the undoing of a Protoss in this tournament, is that they tend to now be foregoing cannons of any sort.
Yeah.
I think its shield battery's great. I should just build that. And I think there may be some situations where they will regret that. The ability to shoot is generally pretty good. The ability to shoot up is very good. So the question is whether or not they will also build a cannon, or at least one at any rate, just to set up a defensive position. For instance, if there were a cannon at that third base, you wouldn't have lost 13 probes to the slowest drone run by in history. It's worth thinking about.
Yeah, it's funny because he then does add a cannon, but then I don't know. There's a big fight happening, so I'm not sure if we saw it on screen, but he actually blocked the Baneling run by with like 6 probes, which didn't work out that great.
It's like, well, you're attacking my face, but I will block it with my face. Like,
here's what you want. So very strong play from Neeb, and we're gonna have to see what can stop him because that looks devastating. I thought uThermal had a very good early game. It's not like a single Widowmine killed 35 probes or something like that, but he picked off a Nexus. He did get some probe kills. It was a pretty nice back and forth, but then in mid-game, Neeb looked devastatingly powerful. And then against Solar, that one makes a little bit more sense for me. It's a little bit unfortunate we saw Solar do what he did because, again, or maybe it's the map too. We didn't give too much credence to that. That looked like a pretty small-ish, like a medium-sized map because the army movement was like, I'm moving, and then I'm there. I'm moving, and then I'm there, so.
Well, we've tried a town, didn't work. We tried a Zerg, didn't work. So you know what that means, kids? PvP! Which, if this was Wings of Liberty, I'd be saying, ugh. But it's Legacy of the Void, which means I'm saying, intriguing. We've got some really great PvP. And 4.0 PvP, we've seen very little of that, so I'm excited to see how it goes. Will they ever fight each other, or will it be nothing but shield batteries? Ladies and gentlemen, Zest is best.
Zest, the champion of this last Home Story Cup, and the one before that, which is really funny because the one before that, Protoss were really down on their play, and Zest is just like quietly winning a tournament, of course, again. And then with this new patch, he once again shows off the power of this. So this will be really nice. Solar did really well at Home Story Cup, but Zest did the best, and he'll take on Neeb, who's looking very, very good. And I like what you said. Is it going to be shield batteries? Because, where would those shield batteries come into play in terms of like defending against harass? It's obviously not going to help against DTs, but like if some adepts get in, they're no longer sniping off the probes. We'll have to see. Yep. I'm excited.
I am intrigued. We will find out. This may be 40 minutes of nothing. It's possible. The name of the map is Black-Pink for some reason. To the southwest position, in the pink trunks, playing Protoss, it is Zest. Your home Story Cup champion, ladies and gents. But to the northeast position, the foreign terror himself. In the blue trunks, playing Protoss for Team Ting. Currently the reigning king of the hill with 3 maps in. It's Neeb.
I like that they paired, and obviously it makes sense, but I like that with the new patch, we're getting some new maps. This one made by Avex, one of the prolific map makers in our scene. And yeah, Black-Pink, interesting, but it has kind of a Tron feel to it a little bit.
Yeah.
It's got some different style in terms of aesthetics. I'm really enjoying it. But if you look at that mini-map, lots of bases. It's a very base-saturated map. No more than others, but it is just a 1v1 map, and then there's just like bases absolutely everywhere. Or is this a 4-player map, actually? This might be a 4-player map. I might have spoken too soon. But anyways,
you could see that happening. One way or the other. Lots of bases. Nice little fact from our stats man. Zest has, of course, since 4.0 not dropped a single competitive series. He is currently 21 for 4 in map score when it comes to 4.0 games, having faced Stats, Lucira, Innovation, Bunny, TY, and Creator. So, you know, just a few little players here and there.
Good lord.
That's monstrous, is what that is. We could be seeing the resurrection of Zest right here.
I love it, too. It's like, the patch hits 4 days ago, but the wheel of StarCraft time stops for no man. Like, that's just the series of players that he had to play in just his day-to-day life, basically. But Neeb's going to get scouted here. They're both opting for a ramp wall-off of sorts. Very interesting that way. And both players opting for similar stuff here. I will say Zest has that Sentry coming out, as well as the Stalker, so probably favoring a faster expansion here. Whereas Neeb's going for the 2 Stalkers. Now remember, their attack rate has been reduced, but their damage dramatically increased, pulling them a little bit closer in alignment to like the Dragoon from Brood War, but not quite there, because they can still blink. They're not as tanky. Yeah,
nice to see, honestly. There was something about the way that a Stalker attacked that I found unsatisfying when I briefly tried to play Protoss. I'm like, that's a cool-looking unit, but... Oh, good lord, is it the most boring unit you've ever seen attack a thing? You know, I'm glad that it has a little bit more of a sting in the tail. Neeb with that irritating pylon block. There's the cancellation. Zest gets his Nexus down immediately after that. We got a Stargate on the way here for Zest, and the first shield battery of potentially many shield batteries coming in here.
Yeah, it was interesting, actually, by opening up with that Sentry, the pylon block was uniquely annoying, so it puts his Nexus pretty significantly behind. In the grand scheme of things, it's not that big of a deal. He goes for Stargate, so the expansion being slightly delayed means that he has faster and existing tech, because if you go to Neeb's side, of course, so far he's just favoring units, shield battery, and expansion. Both players agreeing that the shield battery at the top of the ramp is the thing to do. Very cool. I think that's exactly what they envisioned. But we get a forward pylon from Neeb, by the way. It's a little bit in the trajectory of... Yeah, exactly. So it's going to get spotted immediately, actually.
Well, let's see what he's able to do with that. More shield batteries being added in. We're going to have to get the stats man to focus specifically on shield battery count throughout this particular tournament. I want to know how many shield batteries have been built the whole tournament. There's your... Earn your pay, damn it.
A collective groan from him. He's like,
he's not even paying me for this. Oh, dear. All right. The interesting move there. Neeb panics briefly. That's not a real Oracle. Do you realize that was halluc? You not loss.
The timing that's really funny, actually.
Yeah.
A Sentry came out first, or second, excuse me, off the gateway. So it's actually a very fast Sentry, so that's why Neeb reacted that way. He believed that to have been real.
But look at this. There are 2 real Oracles now heading across the map. Will he believe? Will he truly believe? Or will he just... If he doesn't, this is going to be nasty.
He's not so far. He saw him. He saw him mid-map.
Oh my god, he doesn't believe.
He's not moving.
He doesn't believe they're real! Oh no, and now he realizes they're real, but not before taking some significant damage. Ouch. That has got a sting. 6 workers killed, and out he goes. What a mind game here from Zest. What a fantastic little start. And he's going to catch those 2 adepts as well before they're able to escape. Those adepts did a little bit of harass, a little bit of irritating harass, but that's going to get shot down. And wow, Neeb shaken somewhat by the superior mind games of Zest.
But not stirred, TotalBiscuit.
No, indeed not.
Stirred. He did pick off the Sentry in the middle of the map. It's a slight victory, but a nice one of the things to trade out for your 2 adepts. That'll be it. And now he's going to pull in the middle line is Zest, but these Stalkers pack quite the wall up, so they're going to have to leave immediately. I want to go back to that mind game, though. It's kind of funny. Like, the first hallucination shows up. That's at a time where Oracle could show up, and that's confusing. But the other two, you would have had to gone straight, like, 3 sentries off your gateways to make that possible. But with the Chrono Boost timing kind of shaking things up, the mastermind that is Neeb probably does not feel comfortable, making those guesses. So he just said, yeah, okay, that's a fake one, too. And it turns out it was not.
Indeed. And into the middle of the line, once again, they go. Where they stop, nobody knows, and Oracle does fall. Significant damage from both Oracles, though, honestly. I think they have paid, certainly, for their cost. The shield battery, helpful here, but Oracle DPS is so damn high that really a shield battery can't necessarily do the job, especially when he's sending 2 Oracles at a time. Can only heal 1 target, so it doesn't do a great deal. It's nice to have them, but probably not the counter he was looking for. Zest once again moving in, getting great scouting information here. He knows exactly what his opponent's building.
Yep, and now with just the 1 Oracle, you can see exactly what TotalBiscuit was talking about kind of playing out. He gets 1 probe there, but the other one was getting healed, so he had to back out. He does go for the faster third, but despite all those probes being killed, it's actually only a 2 probe advantage for Zest. Now keep in mind, Zest's Nexus was quite a bit later, opting for that Stargate, so a little bit of an equalizer. I think it's kind of interesting that way. Neeb is going to scout this 3rd base, to which he has not started his own just yet, and he just got done adding a bunch of gateways. So this is the point of no return. You either build a Nexus right now or you go for the attack. Well, okay, I don't have to get too far into my analysis for the answer. There is the 3rd.
Indeed it is. An Archon coming out nice and early here from Zest, and of course he does have the capability to build a Warp Prism. We might see that in action. Charge being added in as well. This is shaping up to be quite the interesting little PvP.
Yeah. Tech-wise, they're doing different things. We see Charge coming out from Zest, like you said. He has a bigger Immortal base. That's something to kind of keep your eye on. Neeb so far... You know what? I was actually going to get kind of far into this. No, never mind. They're similar in that regard. I guess one of the interesting divergent points for them is Neeb is going to go for Glaive before that while adding his own Temple Archive. So a lot of times you see Charge paired with Archons, but I think we're about to see a Mass Adepts coming out from Neeb with Archons, which is like, it's not terrible. It's just not what you would think. So kind of interesting.
No, it's not a brilliant build, but with Resonating Glaives, it can certainly take a walloping and dish it out as well. Zest isn't going to wait. That 3rd base is exposed, and honestly, even defending it's going to be a bit of a pain in the arse, considering that ramp up there. And here comes the Warp Prism. Neeb realizes what's coming on here, but that's going to be a sacrifice. There's no way he can hold it. Down it goes. Supply blocking Neeb, and this is looking messy. I mean, Neeb's army is actually quite small, and really I don't see any advantage that he has in that army.
No, you're dead on about this. I'm kind of looking at it and saying, well, where's the production coming out?
Where's the 10 shield batteries?
He's just down 30 supply.
Yep.
He just lost the Nexus. It finishes tragically moments before that army shows up. Here comes the Warp, and it's a bunch of Templars, some Adepts. But his army's now, I mean, in PvP, and part of the reason why I can kind of fall into the trap of like, oh, PvP. What do you do from here? He's just behind a base. They have similar production. The army is just bigger for Zest. I mean, what are you going to do? What's the X factor?
Well, apparently you lose a bunch of probes to a double Immortal drop. That's what you do. And then out he goes. Cannon got gunned down as well. That shield battery might have been useful there, but here's one of the interesting parts about it. Oh, here we go. A little bit of a scrap in the middle, which once again, Neeb comes off worse for wearing. This is not the sort of thing you can afford to really do in a mirror. Attempted Adept drop to do some damage. Already some Zealots respond to that. Nice micro here for Neeb, evacuating the weakened... Oh, and actually a giant Warpin of Doom right into the center of the base, and currently Zest's army is out of position. Let's see what kind of damage can be done here. Excellent Warp Prism micro coming in here from Neeb, but has any real damage actually been done? And the answer...
Not really.
No, not really.
No, he's going to shade forward. He's going to combine with his army over here. He does get on top of the majority of Zest's army. If there was ever a moment to do anything, it's right now.
Yep, go
but
for it.
I just don't think he has enough tools. There's Immortals on the high ground. A decent enough concave for Zest. Zest is maintaining that 30 supply advantage. And I just think Neeb is outgunned. There's no third behind this, and he is dead.
Yeah, Zest out micros, outthinks and outpaces, and dethrones our king, ladies and gentlemen. Zest, indeed, when it comes to 4.0, appears to be best. and has taken the throne. We haven't heard that for quite some time, actually. He has not won a game in Kings for a while.
Oh. Although I do kind of, maybe it's like my Protoss hurt like my Arcala is wounded or something like that. I think you always give him like innovation or something ridiculously hard.
Yeah, I mean, we do have a tendency of bringing difficult players in, which is obviously tricky to deal with, especially in a best of one.
And Stefano, though, right?
Yeah, every now and again he'll show up because he needs a little bit extra pay. Well, the interesting thing is he actually wins and goes away with it as well. That's what... He's not just showing up to show up. He's like, I need $1,500. TotalBiscuit, can you give me one? Oui, yes, if you can win. And then he goes and wins, beats like 3 of the best in the world, and then just leaves and doesn't come back for another 6 months. But Zest, after having a fairly rough couple of years, let's be completely honest about that, seems to be having something of a resurgence here.
He is, and he's again on that short list of the best Protoss in the scene, which is kind of funny because you almost, like you said, you almost kind of talk about him as like, he's like, oh look, he's still hanging around. It's like he's not just hanging around; he's kicking ass and doing it really well. I think it's interesting because we're in a new dawn of StarCraft, right? So like Zest for a while now has been fairly teamless, but still making it to these tournaments, still practicing, still working really hard. And getting those results, like you said, he was like 21-4 or something like that in these 4 short days, with basically the who's who of other players to beat in the world in terms of the Korean scene. So not bad. And in this game, he just looked polished. If you want to like look into the future and see what Protoss is, I guess, supposed to look like, Zest is probably your shining beacon.
Yeah, that was really well executed. The question is, will he be able to do it against another race? Well, we know for a fact that he can. We've already seen the stats over the last few days from Home Story Cup that very clearly indicate that he is capable. Let's see if he can continue it, because I have somebody who would love to avenge their fallen comrade, their housemate, one of their best friends.
I don't know what server we're on, by the way. No one told
we are actually on NA right now.
Ah, okay.
Next challenger. Zest has a freshly acquired, squeaky clean throne. Just cleaned all the blood off. Question is, will he be able to hold onto it? Because revenge is on the mind of our next Zerg player. One of the best in the foreign scene for a very long time. One of the most legendary. Looking for blood. It's Scarlett.
Scarlett on that list as well of players who's like, oh, they're still doing really, really well. Yep, Scarlett's still one of the absolute best. Whenever she don't kind of focuses on StarCraft, she just rises to the top very quickly. And it's good to see. She actually also had a very good, we keep saying Home Story Cup, guys. Not that we're like we're not shilling for Home Story Cup. It's just that tournament just happened.
Yeah.
It happened
basically
on
the only
tournament of this
to
patch,
happen.
basically.
Yeah, the only tournament really that has happened up to this point. I would say, Kings has a stronger lineup. Home Story Cup, of course, primarily for fun, a great event, and you should all watch it whenever it happens. But we do have the best in the world, quite literally here, as we've said, BlizzCon Round of 4, and many other mystery players besides. So I'm intrigued to see what they can produce here in the 4.0 patch. And Zest, if Home Story Cup is anything to go by, is really the king amongst everybody else at the moment? Will he be able to maintain that? Is that just a fluke, or is this patch really working for him? We'll find out on our next map, which is Ascension to Aya, as Neeb's housemate Scarlett attempts to take vengeance for her fallen brethren.
Well, we'll see. I mean, you actually touched on a subject that for the very first time, at least in my tenure as being your co-commentator for this tournament, I think this is our best chance for someone to have a very dominant King of the Hill run here, because Zest has just shown to be very strong with the current meta. And I don't know, like in the past, we've always played where it's like, you know, the map pool is established, the meta's established, who's the best? Well, it kind of fluctuates. With Zest here, though, this is very experimental, but he seems to have found a way.
That he does. That he does, and he has. And one has to wonder what he did in terms of prep for that. There are some players that as soon as the test map is available, they say, this is my opportunity to get a little bit of a leg up on everybody else. Maybe get some quick tournament success before everybody catches up. Zest may very well have been one of those players. Considering he wasn't really competing in anything else, it's not a bad thing to do.
Well, it's interesting, too. You're exactly right, because we just come off the back of BlizzCon where, you know, for sure, Neeb and some of these other players that may or may not make an appearance today, absolutely we're focusing not on the test map, but just purely on what was being played there.
Yeah.
Whereas Zest, not so much. Some of these other players, Scarlett, not so much. Solar. So maybe they did play some test map. Maybe they did prepare and say, you know what? That Home Story Cup just got a bump in prize. King's coming up. Maybe I can make some money for myself. Wouldn't be the worst decision in the world, I don't think.
No, especially during off-season, you know, and we're probably going to see quite a lot of fluctuation during this effective off-season. We already know that there is significant changes planned to this patch at the end of November. That's not really relevant now, but that's the sort of thing that these players are going to have to put into consideration. And there are, of course, events in November and December, but BlizzCon is done. The WCS season won't really start until next year, so there will be a variety of independent events that are worth training for, but will be a little different. Now, our tournaments, of course,
like, jump-starting the meta it pays off. You know, like GSL will start really soon. A lot of these one-off events do pay really well. So if you can put in the work while everyone else is focusing on
something else,
then becomes an irrelevant meta, that actually can pay off pretty quickly.
Yeah, we actually got some interesting feedback from the pros since it was very close to the patch, and they didn't really know that this patch was going to be live by the time this tournament went live, and they very specifically all said, you're playing this on the new patch, right? If not, we don't want to play. Yeah. So those are people who've obviously been prepping for it and who didn't want to commit even an iota of their time to playing the old version, even when money was on the line, which was fine, you know, because ShoutCraft would never play the old version. That's never going to happen. We like to be on the forefront of such things.
But it was cool they asked. That's an interesting point. Because if it was on an irrelevant patch, they were like, nope, that's not what I'm focusing on. I don't want to play.
Yeah, it was an interesting indicator of where their focus lied, and that is, of course, ahead during the off-season. See what they can pick up and see if they can put themselves into a stronger position going into WCS of 2018. It will be a very different landscape by the time that begins.
Well, interesting thing is developing here. This Overlord is getting a full scout. It sees everything.
Oh, yeah.
It's a little bit bare bones, which should make Scarlett pause, but there's no real additional queens being added. These adepts get into the main base. They're going to already chop down some drones. They've killed a few lings, but here comes the Oracle. It's 3 minutes and 30 seconds,
incredibly
and
fast.
The Oracle flies in.
Yep. There are 3 queens available, but there's going to be damage done. I mean, there's not really a question about that. Yeah, Scarlett has already taken significant losses economically. I mean, we're talking about down to 25 workers here. 11 workers killed total already. That's a lot. You know, that is significant. That proxy Stargate, you know, is that a problem for Zest? Not really. You know, Scarlett's going to have to focus on building drones and queens. I don't think she can really afford to build military units to go and clean that up.
No, I mean, she will find it here as long as Lings kind of continue on their path, and it will get killed. But this in this matchup, having a Stargate's nice, obviously, but after you build your 2 oracles, that's basically what it's used for. You don't necessarily need it for much more. And he's already adding production behind this back at home. So yes, this tech will be shut down, but like you said, going down to 25 workers, Scarlett is still behind in workers, and she's basically built nothing else. What's kind of interesting about this for me is Zest has opted not really And this is so Zest, by the way. He has you can take a third off of that and be very safe, right? Because the Zerg has to make nothing but drones.
Yep.
But what does he do? He's adding a bunch of gateways, and off that he can take a third, or he can attack, and that's what's been kind of dangerous about the new Zest. He's not an all-inner or a turtle Protoss. He's everything.
Well,
he keeps you guessing.
I honestly think that's exactly what you should be as a pro gamer. You should be able to turn it on when need be. Don't why stick to a build if you're so far ahead economically? Why stick to that build? Why not maybe finish it right there? Well, as it happens, he is going to take the third, which, you know, that might be questionable. I mean, we could have just seen Gateway Explosion plus Immortals plus Warp Prism and then probably a dead Scarlett, but Zest, I think, respects Scarlett too much for that. That may be his undoing. You know, he's basically allowed Scarlett a way back into this game.
But look at, I don't disagree with you at all. It's just interesting to look at how deep the wound runs. Like, Scarlett has been doing nothing but piling out drones, so now she's at 55 to 44, so she's ahead in that regard.
Lair is incredibly late.
Exactly. Incredibly late lair, just +1 melee being done on the Evo chamber. No army whatsoever. She's got a handful of lings out there, and here comes that Warp Prism TotalBiscuit. So
yeah, it's not
Zest might be able to take a third and deal damage because of how far Scarlett was behind.
Yeah, it's unpleasant. I mean, this is maybe a position where you want to be thinking about static defense. You know, you need to be spending your units as efficiently as possible. You know attacks are going to come, so maybe some spines would have helped here, but it's too late. This third base, I mean, I see no way to hold it. This is an abandoned situation right here.
It might have to be, and with it the game, if she does. I think she has to fight here. She's got the 3 queens coming forward. It's nothing but lings coming out against Archons. Charge lots are about to finish. So Zest is kind of feeling this out, but I think he can actually just commit. He's got some Zealots kind of bleeding forward over there.
I would say so. I mean, I don't see any reason at all to believe that Scarlett can hold this third base at this point, especially with Oracle support. You know, I mean, everything is in the Protoss' favor here. A few queens is not going to get rid of this, especially once the charging Zealots get into play, and they do. Scarlett is buying as much time as possible. The Banelings connect incredibly well. Suddenly, that Zealot shield is gone, but there's a second warp in behind it, and those did not connect. Yeah, it is just too much. You know, the damage done early was too much, and Scarlett is on the ropes in every sense of the word. It's Ling and Baneling versus Archons, for God's sake. That doesn't work out very well. They crash against the shields, and that Archon may die, which is great. You know, get rid of that. That's fantastic. But there's another warp in of Chargelets, and I don't think that the Zerg player can continue to keep this up.
Scarlett's doing what she can. I think she's dead, but she's doing exactly what she can. The third base... No, never mind. There's Zealots on top of that. For a while there was untouched, but I think the wheels have fallen off the wagon. The Queen on the high ground going to try to kill that Archon. It does fall, but like you said, there's just too much. The Hydra Den never going to see the light of day.
GG. Yeah, that wasn't going to happen. Yeah, if she had the Hydra Den up a little bit earlier, sure. I think that was the best defense with what she had. She could have possibly mounted. Like, she lasted way longer than I expected. But that was going to happen. And like I said, even with the third base going down, I think something in Zest's head triggered that said, oh, I have done way too much damage here. Like, there's no reason for me to continue to play some economic game here. I should just hit that third.
Yep, you actually described the... I mean, it was kind of funny because we saw it play out where he, like, shows up. I'm going to kill a couple creep tumors. Like, there's nothing showing up. Oh, you're just on Queen Ling. I guess I will win the game. And that it played out very kind of safely that way as Zest kind of felt out the situation. But I you know, no fault to Scarlett. Like I said, she pretty much died when 11 drones went down to that first Oracle. Yeah. There were some Adepts doing damage as well. It wasn't just the 11 drones. It was also the 2 Adepts killing, I think it was like 3, maybe 4 drones and some Lings. It just all snowballed too poorly for Scarlett. So she gave herself the best chance to win by just powering those drones. If she does anything less than that, for anybody in the chat that's like, no, she could have maybe made a Roach Warren. No, anything she does outside of just making the drones, she dies another way. And sometimes StarCraft can become fairly that way, where it's just kind of rigid. Yeah. If you take too much damage, that's going to be it at this level.
Yeah. You know, the only thing that I would have liked to see is maybe an attempt to use spine crawlers at some point during that. Perhaps. Maybe, you know, it's a fairly efficient use of minerals and a single drone. to get a unit that would do significant damage. But even then, you know, that defense was as good as it could have been. You know, there was actually some really great controls, some excellent Baneling connections, great use of transfuse. But what are you gonna do? That's just constant warp-ins and wave after wave of Protoss. There's only so long you can hold that with Ling Bane. You didn't even have +1. I think that it was just kicking in by the end of it. It was just it wasn't going to happen. That Oracle damage was too significant. Well, good time to take a break. When we come back, we'll find out who will face down Zest. He's currently $1,000 in. Not a bad little start for him. The question is, can he continue his dominance in the 4.0 patch? We'll find out after the break, folks. You are watching ShoutCraft Kings. Don't go anywhere, because we have so much more StarCraft action to come. All right, ladies and gentlemen, Zest is currently king of the hill. Will Zest continue to be best? He's already earned $1,000, 10% of his Home Story Cup prize pool in about 15 minutes of work. That's not too bad. However, he has to face up against a powerful and hungry ByuN.
Great matchup. ByuN also, unfortunately, kind of, not a part of BlizzCon after 1 year from winning it. And he's hungry, like you said, hungry for more. This is one of the most emotional players in the scene and one of the most capable. So it'll be really nice to see what he's thinking is the way to win in this new era of StarCraft 2.
Yep, and it's an opportunity for him to do just that. As the kind of guy that grinds out online tournaments, and what better way to learn a new patch than to do that? You'll get to fight plenty of best of 3s, best of 5s, and best of 7s against the best in the world. Quickly learn what the best options are, and then go forward from there. And I'd love to see ByuN resurgence in 2018. That would be great. Now, he wasn't even on the WCS list in 2017 after winning WCS 2016. That's how far it can fall, and that happens more often than not in StarCraft 2, the curse of a champion.
Yeah, well, it's not even just the curse of the champion. It's just this game has such an incredibly throttled and difficult top tier that, to remain consistent and produce results with a rotating map pool, a changing meta, and then these players that, like you said, the curse of the champion, they study you, they watch you, they hone in on what you did to win. It's incredibly difficult. We're just kind of spoiled because we have people that are able to be consistent in that world. So we just kind of, I think for almost on a subconscious level, take for granted how hard that is.
Yeah. As much as some people like to mock Sue, and they really shouldn't, getting second place that many times in Premier tournaments actually makes him the most consistent player in the scene by a country mile.
Yep.
I don't think there's any question about that. That actually makes him the most dominant player by a big, big margin, in my opinion. So we will see. He'll be showing up later on, folks, and we'll see what he can do here. To the southeast position, as we find out who is lagging our game, Mr. Fruit Bunker.
Fruit Bunker!
Fruit Bunker! Why would you need to keep fruit in a bunker? What do you expect to happen here?
Why not? Or is the bunker made of fruit?
Nobody knows. I would say that would be a fairly ineffective bunker, all things considered.
Unless you're defending against like a very, very dedicated meat eater that just does not like other things.
ByuN with the stealth
shilling.
promo right
Look at
there.
the Koreans shill. Good for
it's
them.
good. It's good. I'm glad they've learned to do that. That's good. All right. I am going to unpause the game. 3, 2, 1, and here we go. Zest did it for me. That's lovely. That's nice of him.
He wants to play.
He does. ByuN's been streaming quite a lot lately. His form is as good as ever. But the question is, what can he do in 4.0? We'll find out. To the southeast position, the Challenger. In the blue trunks on Odyssey LE. Playing Terran, it's ByuN. And he has a rather interesting idea as to where to put his barracks.
Yeah, there's 2/3 of his base.
Indeed. It's all the way over there. Currently, completely unspotted. To the northwest position, the reigning king of the hill. And, of course, the Home Story Cup champion in the pink trunks, playing Protoss. It is Zest.
And Zest is probe scouting. He'll figure this out pretty quickly, but will he figure out how aggressive this is? ByuN doesn't actually have to lift that barracks, mind you. He's just right next to that kind of small little ramp where a Reaper can hop up there. The gases finish. The Reaper gets there. So in a world where Oracles show up pretty darn quick, Reapers can still show up very quick themselves.
Well, if you're going to build your production right next to the enemy base, then things do tend to pop up faster than usual. And this is not a huge commitment. As much as people might have a look at this and say, all in, cheese. It's not really. A barracks being across the map is unusual, but it is by no means an all-or-nothing attack.
Nope. It's it obviously leverages the production, so there's obviously some risk to it. But this Reaper is just going to get damaged out. Zealot comes out. This interesting situation where the Zealot's going to try to zone it away. The first probe.
Almost yes! Loses it. Yeah! Great control. Oh, but it's not quite enough to deal with that. Probes do not outrun Reapers.
And the Chrono Boost, look at how fast the Stalker's coming out.
Yeah, that's going to make Reapers even less effective. I mean, we already had issues with the Reaper, ByuN, of course, many argue winning his WCS championship off the back of the strength of the Reaper, which then immediately got hit with the nerf hammer as a direct result of that. Now it might be even more difficult to do anything.
Well, this probe is actually doing a lot. Okay, the Stalker was at first, I thought, going to make its way across the map, but he's going to opt to not do that. I think by the time he shows up, he hurts a depot or something, and then Cyclone comes out and shuts it down.
Not going to do much. Like, ByuN needs to get out of there. There's not a lot he can really do anymore with those Reapers. Question is, where does he go from there? Well, we already saw a factory, and he's actually following it up with a Cyclone. Reaper Cyclone, I like that, especially against these Stalker-heavy builds we're now seeing out of Protoss.
Yeah. It's just a good way to kind of have something that puts a little bit of fear in God in the middle of the map, but also can defend quite well. The probe, however, is going to see exactly kind of what's happening. It gets a really good dose of intel, and the barracks floating on the way back. Keep in mind, that has its own cost that I guess we should kind of pay tribute to here. He's not able to start stim or combat shield or anything like that. Now, if you look at the build, he's obviously working around that. He's not doing a build that's like really hurt by that right now.
No.
And then if you look at the worker count, by the way, it's actually pretty even. So that's not bad. And it kind of goes to your point where it's like the Reapers get out. It's not an all-in. They didn't kill. I think they killed one probe, maybe two if I missed one. But what they did do is they forced the Protoss to Chrono Boost out Stalkers and defend as opposed to continue to produce probes.
Yeah, interesting. And here we go. Cycle, unfortunately, taking a stinging volley from those Stalkers, which are stronger than I think ByuN is necessarily used to, so you need to watch out for that. He finds a way up, but there was defense there as well. He's going into the mineral line. He might be able to pick off a couple more workers. And he actually does get it. He does get two. Looking to get more than that. I don't think that's going to happen. Interesting choice by Zest not to go with the shield battery at the back, actually, which really would negate Reaper Harass entirely.
Yep. A single shield battery there would have absolutely shut that down 100%. But, they're walking a tightrope, so he didn't build it not because he thinks that, it's bad or something. He built it because he's trying to cut a few corners here because he knows his pro production has been delayed a little bit, I guess, is what he's opting for. And he knows that a drop's probably not coming in too terribly soon, so... Not bad. Both Reapers die. That's okay. They would otherwise just go sit on a tower. There's no other purpose for them right now. But ByuN has found himself kind of recovering a little bit okay. It's weird to use the word recovering, but I guess the point I would make here is the Reapers, they can end a lot of games against certain builds, but I think with the new Chrono Boost, you're going to kind of see like, did that work that well? ByuN microed really, really well, made a good choice, and only got one, maybe two probes. That's pretty incredible.
Yeah, it wasn't particularly great. And one has to wonder really about the efficacy of Reapers in general at this point. Yeah. Even without the shield battery, they didn't get a great deal done. Was it really worth it? What you will notice is a nice little buff to the Cyclone. They actually hurt air units now, as opposed to tickling them, which is what they've been doing for the last 6 months. So that was a great pickup.
The new bunker. Like, it used to be they just destroyed anything in the air. Then they were like, well, that's too much. Let's make it so they don't even touch them. And now they're back to being like, we kind of do.
Yeah, pretty good for clearing out observers. That's a nice little thing to have in order to do that. And he picks one off quite nicely there. We may very well see, of course, the new observer ability, which allows you to lock an observer down in a particular position and not accidentally move it with your army if you don't want to. Is that something that you could foresee being used as a pro level, or is it really just a convenience or quality of life feature?
I think it's all of the above, but to your point, yeah, I think it will be used in the pro scene. It's not nearly as much, but F2 is still used by pro gamers, and if you have it in that kind of stationary mode, then it doesn't get grabbed. So that'll be slightly nice, but it's a little bit niche. And to your point, I think it is mostly quality of life. A little bit funny thing here. I don't know. It's just kind of funny to point out, but I think the Robo Rally is weird. Yeah, it's okay. He just found it. He had an Immortal just sitting over to the right of his main base, and it was because of that rally, which is actually still there. Never mind.
Here come the Stalkers once again. They shot down the Banshee Harass, which got a few kills, not a huge amount. That stim is now done, and it is Marine Tank up against Blink Stalker, and not a lot of Blink Stalker either, honestly. I wouldn't want to be anywhere near that.
No, they're going to try to buy some time, slow this down, and by the time that force gets over there, we should have 3 Immortals and charge lots. So ByuN wants to attack this third and siege up from there. It's not really being slowed down, but I'm afraid for ByuN, to be honest with you. The army that he's about to face is going to be pretty darn impressive. This third Immortal is about to come out.
There's a stim once again, immediately blinking out of the way. Only a couple of medevacs. That's a lot of firepower.
It is.
Yeah, that Protoss army a lot larger, almost like ByuN has been led into a false sense of security, having seen only a tiny fraction of what the Protoss actually has at their disposal.
Yeah, he scans, doesn't see much. There's just a few stalkers. Like you said, it's like, wow, the stalker count's not that impressive. That wasn't even all the stalkers, was the kind of funny point. There's the scan. He still misses the army on the ramp, and I agree. No. I think he just thinks it's okay.
All right, well, the deployment is here. The chargelets and the... Oh, God, damn it. A exceptional blink right on top of the tanks, and ByuN is regretting his decision heavily here. It looks like he's going to have to evacuate with what he's got. He can't. Focus fire by Zest brings down the dropships, and everything is going to die. There is nothing. Oh, my God. He just gets out with something, but... That was a horrible disaster for ByuN.
He's got 2 Liberators coming out, and they're going to have to do a lot of work, and they got to do it right now. He's going to drop down. There's a good Bioforce showing up. I don't think Zest can get through that.
I wouldn't want to, but he's going to just blink it and focus it down anyways, and getting those Liberators out of the way means that really there's not a lot else, but the boys have been pulled, and they will be able to buffer for some time, not without significant economic loss here for the Terran player, but... Right, Terran barely has an army at this point.
Yeah.
It's just, that was messy. ByuN just took a body blow when it came to his economy. And that Marine tank build, as it turned out, was completely ineffective. We're seeing a switch to Marauder Liberator, which should be reasonable, but I have to wonder if Zest is going to bring the death blow in before that even matters.
Yeah, I mean, he pulls his whole economy to try to survive that, basically. Much, and it's just, it's a different era. Like, he needed to win that fight huge, I guess, but Zest was able to pick off the 2 Liberators. He's picking off the medevacs that entire time. He's probably going to get this command center. Stalkers just pack such a punch right now. They're so different.
Yeah, and you might see that, look at the amount of damage that command center's taking. It may die. In fact, if these Blink Stalkers were micro correctly, it probably was going to happen. But ByuN is able to get that command center out, hopefully repair it. And this is the kind of last stand of the Terran here, really. You're seeing the Protoss has 4 bases unmolested. This would require Zest to jump right into Liberator fields without just blowing them out of the sky instantly, which is exactly what they did. We got workers off the line yet again, and ByuN's force is just not large enough to overcome what the Protoss has. GG again. Zest is on a roll here.
Yeah, he devastates ByuN. And it's going to make some people scratch their head, maybe even some of our favorite non-Korean Terrans whine on Twitter a little bit, because ByuN opens up with what is a classic cheese, well, light cheese. We'll call it a Kobe Jack. It's just a gentle little cheese where in the past, in Heart of the Swarm, even earlier in Legacy of the Void, you're kind of guaranteed to net 4 or 5 probe kills and really throw the Protoss for a loop if it goes unscouted as long as it did like this. But instead he gets 1 probe, doesn't do much. He has to float the barracks all the way back, opts for a Marine tank push, kind of blindly, by the way. He doesn't do any other harass that really gets anything done. There's no drop. There's no Hellion run by, nothing like that. And Zest is just utilizing what Protoss has right now really well and absolutely steamrolls.
Yeah. It's the best way to describe it, honestly. It was a complete and total steamroll. Huge amounts of damage being dealt by those Blink Stalkers. Zest, I mean, I recall when Zest was at his most successful, and he was always a great Blink Stalker guy. Now he has more powerful Blink Stalkers. He's using them as much as he can, and one can hardly blame him.
Yeah. And it changes things. It's kind of interesting to see how it changes things, by the way. So, like, you were talking about he's going to try to get away. No, medevacs do not get away anymore. If there's like 6 or 7 stalkers and they shoot it, it's going to die. Liberators, I think they have a similar role, obviously, in the matchup, but they too are more susceptible. Just the buff to Stalkers is going to change the dynamic of that matchup, I think, more so than others by a lot.
Yeah, we're going to have
Zest has always been one of the best Stalker players, too.
No doubt. Now, we're going to have to see maybe a larger use of Cyclones, maybe a larger use of Marauders in this particular situation, whereas for the longest time, Marauders haven't been so relevant, especially not in the early game against Protoss, but now we're seeing these big, heavy mechanical armies, and now we also have a new Raven to play with, which has some interesting abilities. You know, more of a support caster now, less of a direct damage. We have seen several cool clips of the Raven in action, but didn't come into play there, and this more traditional style that we saw from ByuN clearly does not work against what Zest is bringing to the table.
It is interesting to watch because so far a few of these players are not really breaking from the mold. Like everything ByuN did, by the way, was not. That was just old stuff, which is not necessarily wrong. I'm not sitting here saying ByuN, you idiot, that's terrible. I'm just more saying it's interesting to watch the old stuff paired against kind of the new things that other races can pull off, and it just makes it look a little bit silly. Like Zest is obviously, again, he's top 3 Protoss in the world, guys. We're not talking about like the number 12 or something like that. He's literally in the top 3 by most people's metrics. And he made it look silly because ByuN is also way up on the Terran list, but it just was very one-sided.
It really was. And a lot of these games have looked that way, honestly. Anything involving Zest looks like he's been in complete control and has this level of understanding beyond his opponent. That is a dangerous thing indeed for a new patch. But that doesn't mean he's unstoppable. And we've got some great players to put up against him, and here is one of them right here. Similar to ByuN, a man that had incredible success in 2016 and fell a little bit off the map during 2017. He's been lurking, or might say in the shadows, perhaps, where there is no light. Others may say he's been in the dark.